You're listening to What's in Store, the official Hardlines podcast series, bringing you the hottest conversations with players in the home improvement retail industry, and brought to you by Geldwin.
Hello there, and welcome to our latest podcast, What's in Store. Today, I'm chatting with Michael McLarney, and I'm Rebecca Dumais. I'm the editor of HHIQ magazine. Michael's coming to us from World Headquarters. It's nice to chat with you this afternoon. We are going to be chatting about the retail report and all of it.
Fantastic. Happy to be here, Becky. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Perfect. So I guess it all goes back to the big kahuna, right? People have heard us refer to that here and there, and our current issue obviously has the retail report information vetted in there really nicely with our top 20. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the big kahuna itself, and that's the driving force behind the retail report, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and how it feeds into what people will read in the magazine and then when they actually buy the copy of the retail report.
Absolutely, yes. When I first started Hardlines, I realized we didn't have enough data on the industry itself. And so I wanted to try and figure out a definition of the industry and then try and measure it year over year. And that started 30 years ago when I first started Hardlines. And to do that, I started building a spreadsheet. Now I'm not a numbers guy. I'm a words guy. I'm an editor. I can barely do math. That's the curse of an editor, but nonetheless, I persevered and over the years built up a spreadsheet that would track the sales of every major banner in the country, whether it's Home Hardware, Rona, Home Depot, Canadian Tire, ILDC, BMR, right down the list, and by province and weighted by sales. Now, that means we had to keep building a spreadsheet that I think if we printed it out now, it'd probably fill the wall of your dining room. It's a monstrous piece of work, and very proud of it because over the years we've been able to really like for like show how the industry's grown or shrunk in some rare cases, and really identify which provinces are doing better, which retailers are doing better, and why. And so that's the basis for the retail report, which is something we sell and make available to retailers and vendors every year. And again, we call it the Big Kahuna just as for fun, because it's just a monstrous piece of work. And I mean, a lot of it reflects some estimates in sales or some estimates in figures. But as I say, it's year over year. It's the same data. It's the same basis that we use, and we keep tweaking it and making it better every year. And nobody's sued us yet, so I think we must be pretty much on point with most of the numbers that we come up with.
Excellent, great. Are there any other qualifiers that you could maybe talk about as far as who makes it on that list?
Yeah. What we do is we measure by sales.
Mm-hmm.
Actually we try and include every banner we can imagine, plus another category for, other building materials stores, other hardware stores, and we go right down the list of all the regional players, whether it's Kent in the east or Del Rock in the west. All these companies get assessed and evaluated, and we feed those sales into a giant number, which tells us how big the industry is overall. Now, and that industry has been hovering around $60 billion over the last few years. It has shrunk somewhat post-COVID. It certainly had explosive growth during COVID, but shrank somewhat post-COVID and has been down over the last 2 years, over 2023 and 2024. And we've seen it shrink after that explosive growth, and I call it more of a correction than anything. But the fact is that we've put our arms around a size of the industry that includes all the major players, all the regional players. Our estimates of who's out there we can't include. Plus Canadian Tire, for example, we don't count Canadian Tire's automotive. It's financial, it's banking. We really try and focus on its Canadian Tire stores and the sales that relate to this industry. So we have some things that we really define carefully and stick to. For example, we don't include flooring stores and kitchen and bath stores and some of those specialty stores.
Right.
Some GSDs are in there, some of the more commercial dealers, but insofar as they might be members of groups like Castle or Timber Marts, because those groups are measured as well.
Right. Okay. And maybe you could just talk about why it's so important for the industry and what it offers to people who could access it once they purchase it.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is we feel it's an important document. Just so you know, the format is a PowerPoint because we figure it's a great way for anybody that says got to report back to U.S. head office to explain the Canadian market, or you've got new people on your team that aren't familiar with the Canadian home improvement market, and even just update your sales force and identify who your competitors are on the retail side. And so it's a really great tool. I say it would save any marketing person a summer's worth of work, and they'd end up just calling us and buying the report anyway to do most of it. So it's really geared to help people that are trying to develop their marketing strategies for the coming year. So we got it ready as early as we could based on 24 numbers and our forecast for 2025 and 2026. So we've got people lining up waiting for it, and with both vendors who are trying to answer questions of the buyers who are their customers, as well as the retailers that are trying to make sure they understand where they fit in with the overall retail scenario, the retail landscape vis-a-vis their own competitors. So it's really focused on the retail. It's really focused on the retail customer, and like I say, that whole retail home improvement hardware market, which we estimate to be about 1/8 of all retail in Canada. So it's a significant part of the Canadian landscape. And the fact that it doesn't get measured any better than what we do, we think is really important, and we're very proud of that. Having said that, StatsCan does pull out some categories, but nowhere near as comprehensive as what we do.
Right. And plus, you've got the contacts and the knowledge and everything like that they don't have. So would you like to chat at all about how this fits into the top 20 that we've got covered in HHIQ?
Absolutely. Home Improvement Quarterly, our quarterly magazine that goes out to I think it's 11,000 dealers and head offices across the country. It's their handbook for running their businesses better. The great piece you did on the top 20, which is what we call exactly that, the major players by sales in the country, is a real breakdown of who the players are, what their strategies are, what they represent. So if anybody's trying to say, geez, how important is the seasonal category to Home Depot these days? That kind of analysis is going to be inside this report. We really break it down and find out what exactly those companies are doing, what direction they're taking. This, for example, the growth of, say, Home Depot into the pro market. We've tracked that very carefully. The expansion of BMR and Home Hardware into the farm market after the demise of companies like PV Mart. We keep track of all that to help vendors understand where the opportunities are, and to help, again, the retailers understand where the competitors are at. So this is all proprietary information, proprietary hard numbers, and proprietary analysis that you can only get from Hardlines. So we're very proud of that.
Right. Yes, as you should be. It takes you how many hours to put that together?
I'm gonna say if I had to put all the hours through, I don't think we're making a lot of money on this report, because I probably spend about 75 hours every year on it, and it's crazy collectively. I get help, of course, from the Hardlines team, but it's just so much work. It's a labor of love, but we just know that it helps the industry, and that's what Hardlines stands for. How can we help the Hardlines family? Whether it's dealers, retail head offices, suppliers, and vendors.
And then is there some other things other than what you mentioned, what people could utilize the report for? I mean, besides forecasting and, like you say, onboarding, or, anything really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, of course. Because what happens is when we look at, say, the year-over-year numbers, and we can tell, that the industry was up, say, in 2024 or down. In fact, it was down. It shrank by almost 3%. In the year before that, it shrank by almost 4%. So we had 2 years of consecutive shrinkage. So you can look at that and say, okay, you compare that to your own numbers or your own sales levels to your retail customers, it gives you benchmarks for understanding where you fit into the whole scenario. And so these again, these are very important numbers. And likewise, we can look at regions. For example, last year, the biggest drop was in the Atlantic provinces, which were down about 3% collectively, whereas the least shrink was in the West. So the Western provinces were down only 1.5%. So that gives us some regional distinctions as well. So people can identify, where their sales efforts are going. Are we, in other words, geez, I didn't know that Ontario was actually 1/3 of the whole marketplace. Have we got enough salespeople in that area? Have we got enough stores in that area? Depending on whether you're a vendor or a retailer, it helps you identify the norms for the industry, and are you meeting those norms?
Okay, perfect. And do you have any personal insights, like the biggest changes maybe that you've seen out of this year's report?
Yeah, and because a big part of what we do, as I say, is not just dump all the numbers on you, but try and give you that analysis. And so we identify key trends every year. And one of the things we're seeing this year is again more and more American players coming into Canada, whether it's Home Depot that just purchased the company in the U.S. that has got GMS. They purchased GMS in the U.S., which has got several locations in Canada, including Titan Building Materials out on Vancouver Island, and big players like Raleigh and Kingston and elsewhere. So they've all of a sudden now these are owned by Home Depot. And likewise, Lowe's has just purchased Foundation Building Materials, another company that's got a strong presence in Canada. So we're watching that trend with more and more American dollars coming in. We're seeing it at the wholesale level as well. We're watching carefully to see what kind of players are moving in at the wholesale level. We're watching the growth of retail into that pro market, and we have tracked actually the pro business versus DIY versus commercial. So we've actually got an addendum this year that's going out shortly for anybody that did buy the retail report. There'll be a free addendum that's going out to follow that up, that breaks out sales within this industry by pro or contractor, do-it-yourself or retail, folks like you and me, and the commercial industrial side. So we've got those kinds of numbers as well. So we keep digging into the numbers more and more every year, and we want to be able to share that kind of insight to get people thinking about how the industry is evolving, and challenge the users of the retail report, to challenge people in the Hardlines family that are using it, to make sure they're evolving as well.
Right. And do you think that it would definitely be useful for, say, for an independent or like a young couple or anybody really who's thinking of even opening up a store, and they could utilize this as far as their business plan or anything like that, even too, like right down to the little guy and versus the big,
That's a good question, and I'm not sure that the cost benefit would be for a smaller player who's really focused on their own market, but certainly a startup, somebody who's trying to evaluate, would definitely want to get this. And certainly I know every retail head office gets copies, and likewise some of the mid-sized chains, whether it's any chain with 8 or more stores or 5 or more stores is probably going to want to understand what they can do to guide all those stores in the right direction. So yeah, I shouldn't sell it short. I really think that there's just so much there. The other piece that's important is that it's really good for the young people. I mean, if you've got young people on your they've joined your company, again, whether you're a vendor on the sales side or someone in retail that's trying to understand more than just what's on the store shelves.
Right.
This is a really, really good tool. It's a really good tool for that. And anybody that's is trying to encourage young people, I think that's something that this whole industry is focusing on more. And one of the trends we've identified over the last couple of years is the importance of developing that younger generation in this industry. I mean, in retail in general, retail's got a challenge of trying to bring people on board and get them to see retail as a career, and especially home improvement retail, because it's not the sexiest industry by any means, but it is a good career. And the more people can understand that, and more that they can learn about that industry early on, the better off they'll be. And so, yes, the retail report would be a great tool to help you bring along young people in your store or in your business, and Likewise, you got people on the sales side that are trying to understand the business. Is a great fast track for them. It's absolutely brilliant.
So you would see this then as information that's a fair playing field, that it sort of gives a breadth of everybody, and it's not that it's widely available, and it actually just helps everybody in the industry.
I'd like to think so. Yeah, I'd like to think so. We take a look at, as I say, the top 20 players in general, the top 4. We talk about the top 4 players in particular. So we look at Home Depot. Home Depot Canada, like in the U.S., it's the largest player in this country as well.
Yes.
And they've got their sales penetration in Canada isn't as big as in the U.S. And we can talk about that, in another podcast if you like. But the fact is that the independents in Canada are actually a little stronger than they are in the States, and so we measure that and we analyze that. We look at how big the market share of Home Depot is and why, how big the market share of the number 2 player Home Hardware is and why. Which, and it's quite, it's interesting that the 2 top players are quite different. Home Depot is a corporate business. It's a big box model,
right,
and it's driven out of the U.S.
Yes.
Home Hardware is locally owned and operated. It's all Canadian owned, and it's driven out of small town Ontario for all of Canada. And yet these are the number 1 and 2 players. It's a very cool how diverse this industry is, and we try and explain and make that understandable to people. And then the next one would be Rona and Canadian Tire. Again, 2 very different companies. So all 4 of them are very distinct, and nothing cookie cutter about them, and bear analysis and understanding. Because I got to tell you that we've been tracking this for many years, and we've been answering questions not just to the industry but to Wall Street and Bay Street, and the finance district does not get retail to start with. They just don't get their head around it. It just doesn't operate the way the regular investments work. The fact that if it rains too much one weekend, the value of the stock can go down, just doesn't fit with Bay Street's understanding of this business. So we're very keen to explain that to whether it's someone that calls us from the Globe and Mail or the Financial Post. We'll explain that to them. But what this whole retail report is about is explaining those distinctions, that diversity in this market.
Right. Perfect. And is there anything, or what in particular does the report not include that people might be made aware of right now?
And that's important because in the States, people get spoiled. There are huge research companies like AC Nielsen, which has been renamed, by the way. It's not AC Nielsen anymore, but that's easily recognizable. Those kinds of companies that help measure sales of right down to say how much half-inch 100-foot rubber hose is sold in the U.S. I can't even tell you how big the lawn and garden market is in Canada, because we just don't have access to that information. The market's too small. It's too consolidated. There's so few players that own so much of the market. Those top 4 players own, I have to check, but about 2/3 of the whole market at least, and that's a huge heavyweight. And so they're not willing to share those numbers, and we've tried for 25 years.
Okay. Is there anybody that stands out that was new on the list this year?
I think unfortunately it was more the standouts were people that are going to come off the list. We measured PV Mart because PV was active till the end of 2024, but PV's gone. Yeah. PV's kaput, and we're going to be watching what players might take its place, and also how other players are filling in the hole that was left by the sales of farm and ranch products especially to rural Canada. And again, that's part of our analysis of companies like Home Hardware that have made an active effort to expand their farm and hardware side, and groups like BMR, which has an AgriZone banner or division they're getting behind more than ever to try and capture those sales. So these are the kinds of things we would cover and analyze to make sure that you the user are getting the most out of this product.
And even Ace too, right there.
Thank you. Yes, there's another one. Ace was unceremoniously, I say, kicked out of Canada or exited Canada. There are a couple of Ace stores still. Ace Hardware was being managed by PV Industries, and they ended that relationship effective the end of 2024 as well. So you're right. Good point, Becky. Thank you. The idea that one of the major banners in the U.S. has yet again failed to get a toehold in Canada in any meaningful way is something we've analyzed and discussed in the retail report and in the pages of HHIQ through the years. There are a couple of there's a handful of Ace dealers, and we're going to track more of them down to find out who's staying on with the Ace banner. But a lot of them went to other banners like Rona, BMR, and Home Hardware. So,
or maybe even just became independent, I think too.
Like a couple of just retreated to true independence, which we also find fascinating. We love the true independent. I mean, they're relying on their own gut instincts and their own entrepreneurial spirit, and independent wholesalers like, for example, Orgill out of the U.S. to supply their hardware needs. So this is all relatively new to the industry, and it keeps evolving. So we keep tracking it and love doing it in the process.
Perfect. And so is there anything else that's popped up in that since we've been chatting that you want to mention?
I think I would just add that some of the things we do break out in the retail report, the way we crunch the numbers is to identify sales by store type. We break out the store types by big box, Canadian Tire, which gets its own category, hardware stores, and building supply yards. And so we've measured how each of those different categories has grown or shrunk through the years. We noticed, for example, during COVID, that the big boxes took a bit of a hit because they weren't as accessible. They weren't as they had a harder time staying open or being open in their entirety during COVID. So we watched that switch. At the same time, we've watched, say, the hardware stores do pretty well. The convenience factor of them was good. At the same time, we're watching how so many banners are moving away from true hardware stores and trying to encourage their dealers to add more building materials and become bigger stores with big back ends and not just the front end hardware. So these are all the kinds of things that are changing, and we watch this stuff very closely. Like I say, we also have sales by province, and so we've tracked how the different provinces will shrink or grow in market share. And we actually, with our companion report, the Hardlines Market Share Report, we actually break out by province the sales of every banner. So if you want to know how much what the sales of Timber Mart are in Saskatchewan, you'll get that in the companion report, the Market Share Report. If you want to know what the sales by Kent in New Brunswick are, we got that information. So we just break out by banner, by province, where your sales are. So again, if you're a retailer, you can say, who should I be watching out for? And if you're a vendor, you can say, whom aren't we selling enough to in that province or in that region? And so I think they're really good tools for helping people to just plan for 2026 and guide their sales teams or their marketing teams better.
Right. Now, you mentioned the market share report. Is that something that they have to purchase separately, or? Yeah,
we decided to just break up. We've got so much good information. I mean, the retail report in PowerPoint form is like it's over 150 slides. And we do it in PowerPoint. You can get it in PDF if you like, but we do it in PowerPoint. So if you've got to make a presentation yourself to your team or your U.S. head office or your sales force or whatever, you can lift those slides with abandon. Just, we ask you just give credit where credit is due, but please use these tools to help with transmitting information yourself. So we just thought by the time we added another 85 slides from the market share report, it would just be huge and cumbersome. So we split it up, tried to price it accordingly. And I know that if you buy them both, you get a great bundle price. So most people get both of them because they are great companion pieces. And it's just a A to Z a handbook for how to approach the marketplace.
Perfect. And where can people access this? They can go online. They can.
Absolutely, you can go online and find it in our on our main page under reports. And if all else fails, you can shoot a note to Michelle with 2 L's, Michelle at hardlines.ca, and she can help you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael.
Becky, it's been a pleasure. I love talking about this stuff. So I thank you for asking.
Well, your passion project is continues on, and it's extremely worthwhile. And I recommend that everybody should get a copy.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.